Computer.
Do you know how many people we have registered?
122.
Very good.
Yep.
So are you the one who I should email about like distributing the leads, or should I email Brian?
You can email me and Brian.
Okay, great.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Great.
Since we're almost there. Share screen.
Okay.
Booyah. All right, can you see it?
I can. Yep.
Perfect.
Very good.
What is this?
That box, I think you, oh, now I see you.
Hey, Brian. You're logged in from another device. Uh-oh, your session isn't active. Uh-oh, hang on.
No problem. Oh, that's funny. I see. So he logged in as you?
Yeah.
Okay, so he probably wants to attend, but he probably invited you as a panelist or something like that, right?
Yeah, and I was having trouble getting the panelist stuff to work. Hang on, I'm gonna stop the screen share real quick.
Yep.
Oh, now I gotta log back in. Hang on one second. I'm gonna close this down real quick. All right.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. There we go. Can you hear me?
I can. I see Brian's video as well.
All right,
now
hang on.
Now he's gone, and I can hear you.
Okay. All right, let's see here. All right, let's share my screen. That's not the one I want. I want this one here. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Can you see this thumbnail thing?
Yeah, I can. Try, did you minimize yours? Did you just minimize it?
Yeah, I minimized mine.
Okay, yeah. Now, yeah, I think each person will see that.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because that'll give them a sense of who's talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, well, we're almost there. What do you think? Should we get this thing on the road?
Yeah, I leave it. It's in your hands now. Whatever you want. I'm ready for whatever. So,
all right.
Sometimes
we're broadcasting. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. It looks like we're just waiting on some more people to join the meeting, but so far, looks like we have 7 people joined in. So we'll give everybody a couple more minutes, and then we'll get started. Hope everybody's having a nice week so far. Give everybody a couple more minutes. All right, well, it's about 3 minutes past 10 o'clock Pacific time. So why don't we go ahead and get started, and then as people join, they can kind of hopefully catch up with us. Just to lead things off, my name is Joe Lazzaretti. I'm with a company called Looped, and this is a webinar around technology and how to increase revenue from event data. It's a partnership between Looped Incorporated and Bizzabo, and we are excited to have everybody who has joined in today to kind of hear some of our thoughts and see some of the trends in technology and how that's helping event organizers recognize data and associate that data from events to actual increase of revenue and ROI for the greater company at large. So with that, I just want to let everybody know if they have any questions, please type them in to the webinar, and then at the end of the session, we will do our best to answer as many of them as that we can. So to start things off, my name again is Joe Lazzaretti. I'm a senior account executive with Looped. I have been in the event space for quite some time, both on the agency side, the client side. Also have hosted a number of festivals, both music festivals, food festivals, and sporting events, and have seen many of the technologies that have come through the event space over the years. And I have to say that this is a pretty exciting time for technology and events, as there are lots of new opportunities for event organizers to gather more data and also kind of better target their attendees for future events and for better marketing material from the company as a whole. I'm also joined by David Epstein, and I'll let David introduce himself now.
Thanks, Joe. Very excited to be joining you and Looped on this webinar. I really think it's going to be informative. So a bit about me: I'm the content marketing manager at Bizzabo, which Bizzabo is the world's first event success platform, which helps organizers create events that exceed expectations by helping them to increase registrations, grow communities, go mobile, and maximize event experiences using a user-friendly platform. Prior to Bizzabo, I was a marketing consultant working with a lot of Fortune 500 companies to help them do marketing better and to update their marketing for the digital age.
Fantastic. Thanks, David. We're excited to have David and Bizzabo join us for this webinar. We think their product and their platform is a really great complement to Looped, and I think both technologies are really changing the way events look at data. So we're pretty excited about it.
Awesome.
So let's go over just basic what we're going to talk about today. And again, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to type them in, and then I'll answer them at the end, or David will answer them as well. So first off, why it's important to measure event data, and why it's important to gather that data from the beginning of the event, the entire attendee experience, all the way to the end. And then also, we're going to go into, David's going to talk about how the best way is to capture that engagement before the event. And then I'm going to talk about how to optimize and collect that data during the event, and then how you can use all of that data, both pre-event and during the event, to really get the most out of the post-event follow-up and really associate that follow-up to revenue. So we'll kind of just get into it there. This is a quote that I really like. I think it really speaks to what events are and how they are so important to an organization. So I'll just read it out real quick. Every attendee matters, and every interaction makes a big impact. Events are the sum of your company's success. Events aren't just about one attendee experience. It's about the customer experience over a lifetime. How you measure your event determines how you reach your company goals, and strategically measuring events helps your company see all of the opportunities. And so I think what's so great about this quote is really recognizing that events are a very big part of an organization's ability to grow. And I say that because it really kind of sets them apart from the smaller companies that can't afford to do events, and it really allows them the opportunity to bring attendees in for face-to-face interaction in a controlled environment that the company can then determine how and what messaging they want to put forth to their attendees and to their best customers and to prospects. So making that interaction very important, and recognizing that each interaction is a new opportunity for the company to grow with their customers and grow, with their potential customers year over year. Obviously, a great example of that is Dreamforce from Salesforce, and how they were able to grow their event from literally 1,000 people back in the 2000s to 120,000 people in San Francisco every single year. That's incredible growth, and what they've been able to do with their event, what they've been able to do with the data from their event has really kind of been a perfect opportunity for them to grow the company as a whole. So what are some of the reasons for understanding that events are not about event execution so much anymore as they are about really getting the data from your attendees' interests, right? So in the past, much of events have been about executing, right? You have your website, you have your registration, you have your food and beverage, you have your hotel, you have your events at the parties, and you have your sessions, and you have your content. So you have all of these things that, as an event organizer, you're trying to make sure execute flawlessly, and that's going to be a big part of any event organizer's daily routine and daily work. But what we're starting to see in the industry is a shift, and it's a shift in mindset. And the mindset is, it's no longer just about execution, just about making the best possible event for your attendees. It really goes beyond the execution and is now gone to, how do we use this event to strategically gather information and data on our attendees so that our company as a whole benefits throughout the year, right? And that goes from everything pre-event registration-wise, who's signing up for your sessions, as David's going to talk about, as it is on-site, who's attending your sessions, how long they're there for, who's networking with one another. So you can really use that data year over year to really associate business opportunities to events. And we think it's a really great responsibility that event planners have to really be able to show, this is how these events are benefiting our company every single year, because here's the amount of revenue we can associate to this event. So I think that's really a great new strategic focus that many event organizers, some of the biggest organizers in the country, including Microsoft, Salesforce, Oracle, are starting to recognize. And we think with Bizzabo and Looped, this is a great opportunity to see how the full holistic event lifecycle works for collecting that data and associating it back to events. So I'm going to let David kick it off and show everybody on the phone and who's viewing how it all works before the event. David?
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Great intro. So as Joe mentioned, understanding the entire life cycle of an event attendee is becoming increasingly important, and something that a lot of organizers may not know, though some marketers realize, is that the life cycle begins the moment that person discovers your brand online. And so that usually happens through a number of different channels, which we'll discuss, and that leads that person to your event website. And if you're using any sort of modern platform, whether it's Google Analytics or an automation tool like HubSpot or even WordPress, you can understand who's visiting your site and from where. But the thing is, a lot of people don't realize that not all visits are equal. So let's take Google Analytics as an example, because it's a free analytics tool that's used by millions of websites. It's very popular. So I'm sure some of you in the audience use it today. So a session is the term that Google Analytics used to define a visitor to your site. And according to Google, a session can occur within a 30-minute window, and it can include several different pages that make up your event website. So you can imagine a scenario where someone's using a search engine to find an event in their area. They discover it, they click on your website link and go to your website. Maybe they exit that site, and then a few minutes later, still in this 30-minute window, they discover another link to your website and revisit it again. According to Google, that would still count as one session. On other tools, that would count as 2 sessions or visits, depending on the term. In this case, they can be considered interchangeable. So it's important to understand that not all metrics are tracked the same, and you'll see that as a theme throughout. So in the first bullet point, we talk about channels that drive the most qualified sessions, right? So as an organizer, thinking at the top of the funnel, you need to get qualified eyeballs on your event website. And in order to really understand what channels are most effective, you need to be using a tool that will track your acquisition. And so just to give you an overview, there are a few common channels that you may employ. Organic search, meaning it's a placement that you didn't pay for. Paid search, meaning, of course, it's a paid ad on a search engine. Direct traffic, so they typed in your URL directly. Social media, email, or a display ad that they saw on another website. Those are all common digital channels for event marketers and planners to utilize. Then once you can understand and track those, and segment the traffic by channel, you can then see what channels are driving the most new sessions. So for example, if you see that paid search is driving the most qualified visits to your site, and you're also investing in a content marketing freelancer to help you boost your SEO, it may make sense for you to actually kind of cut the investment in the content freelancer and instead pump that into paid ads, since it's driving more qualified visits. That's something that's one application of this kind of mindset. The other thing is you can also see the channels that are driving recurring visits. So someone who isn't new to your site. And in those instances, you're able to understand the journey of someone who is either who's already registered for your event and is using the event as and is using your website as a way of gathering information, logistical information, or learning more about speakers and sessions they might want to attend. Or you're actually able to track the journey from discovery, from when someone discovers that your event exists, to consideration. So now they might be visiting your site again, but this time with a colleague, and so on. And so with that information, breaking it down by channel and new versus returning, you can begin to optimize the experience, which we'll get into in a moment. And then lastly, again, you want to invest in the channels that are driving more registrants, if that is your goal, if you're trying to increase registrations. Anyway, so we're going to then talk about user behavior. So we've already talked about kind of the channels that might be used to get someone to your site, but then how are they, interacting with your website, and are they doing it in an efficient way? So at Bizzabo, we think of the ideal visitor who hasn't registered. We call that person a hot lead. And for example, our system, if you begin a registration but abandon it, we still capture that data and then present it to the organizer, even if it's incomplete, so that the organizer can follow up with that person through email or targeted retargeting ad campaign or social media or so on. And whether or not you use Bizzabo, you can still capture and see where leads are being created and where your most valuable visitors are dropping off. So for example, Google has a tool called Behavior Flow, and that allows you to actually map the pages, the journey from the channel that your site was discovered on through the first, second, third, fourth, and so on page that most people view in order. And then you can actually see the drop-off rates between pages. So from there, you can begin to optimize the experience to fit the channel. So let's say someone is discovering your site through organic search. Typically, someone who finds a site the first time through an organic search is in the research stage of their journey as a buyer. And they, especially if you're hosting a large corporate or B2B event that is expensive, it's unlikely that they're going to immediately convert to a registrant. But you don't want that person who's discovered you to leave without leaving their data, leaving their contact information, or without getting extra value from you so that they're more likely to return. So for example, you can, with Behavior Flow, you can see, okay, someone has visited my site through a organic search. This is the page they're most likely to appear on. Let me install a pop-up, which you can do for literally no money and very little coding experience, and offer that person a free white paper or Convince Your Boss PDF to encourage them to attend, to offer them value, to get them to return. Conversely, if paid ads is the channel and you see that through some sort of analytics tool, you can then think about how you can optimize the landing page you're driving people to. So is it, can you improve the design or the copy to increase the conversion rate? So those are some things to think about there when you're talking about acquisition channels and then behavior once they're on the site. So I also want to talk about, when we're in this pre-event phase, two very important channels that we know many event marketers and planners are using. So the first is email marketing. According to a study that we did a year ago, surveying about over 500 professional organizers, we saw that 70% use email marketing as their primary marketing channel to generate registrants. And usually the use case is that someone, an event organizer, has collected a large database of contacts through their years of organizing, and then will send an email blast or a series of emails to that database encouraging people to attend or to register. And I think this funnel might help to illustrate what better ways to kind of use email to generate registrants and awareness. So if you look at the top of that funnel there, the first thing is email open rates. If you use any standard email marketing tool, Bizzabo, Constant Contact, MailChimp, so on, you can track all of these metrics. I'm sure most of you have access to them. So open rates, if you're trying to increase that metric, you're probably going to want to look at the subject line of the email, of course, and you're also going to want to make sure that the email being sent is going, is delivered in the inbox, not to a promotions folder if someone uses Gmail, and isn't getting caught in some sort of firewall if you're emailing people in a corporate setting. Then, of course, there's the click-through rate, which means someone's opened your email, and now you want them to take the next step to actually visit the website that you're linking to. And so the CTR can be improved again by trying to clarify or better tailor the body of the email to the recipient. And then lastly, of course, there's the conversion rate of the page that the people are visiting. And again, to think about improving that, you can either improve the design or improve the content on the page. And there are some tools that could help you with that. Optimizely is one. It's a multivariate testing tool that can display different designs or different samples of copy to the statistically significant number of visitors, and will tell you which one's better. And then there's another tool that's less expensive called Usability Hub, which would basically allow you to ask a randomized sample of subjects to use 2 different versions of the page and to kind of complete a designated goal. On the left side, you see 3 principles that you can use to improve any of those metrics that are in the funnel. So the first is segmentation. If you remember the example of emailing your whole database about an upcoming event, it's not a best practice, and that's where segmentation comes in. What you want to be able to do is collect this data about your contacts through previous events, which again is why platforms like Looped and Bizzabo are helpful, because you can better build out the database of contacts. And then use that data, whatever you have, to segment your contacts into different groups, which would then allow you to speak more directly to them and offer them something more relevant than you could if you emailed your entire database of people with mixed interests. The second, and one of the easiest fixes you can employ, is personalization. Whether you're mentioning the recipient's name or company or location or geography or express interests in the email subject line or body, or even the landing page, depending on the content management tool you use. Those things are simple, easy ways to increase any of those metrics. And then lastly is timing. So a company in San Francisco called Boomerang conducted a study of a couple million of their users. Boomerang is a productivity tool that works with email. And they found that the response rate of emails dramatically increased when people's blood sugar was higher. So essentially, after people eat is a very effective time to send an email, because they're fed and they're more content and they're more likely to reply to that email. But timing is something that will vary a lot by location and industry. So you have to test to figure that out. Cool. And then lastly, I just want to briefly talk about social media metrics. So of course, you all know that social media platforms for business are able to collect a lot of different metrics, which is incredibly powerful. But there's a lot of confusion out there about what they mean. And so I just want to clarify that for the audience. So first, let's talk about followers. You can look at the table on the left to follow along. Followers are a good indication of the potential audience a profile has amassed, and that could potentially engage with your content. When we're talking about followers, it's important to remember quantity versus quality. So for example, you could have many poor quality followers, and that would actually hurt you in a number of ways. One way that's often ignored is that it actually makes it harder as a marketer to analyze the data and see what is actually working among your true supporters. So make sure that when you're trying to build a following, that you're reaching out from the beginning to your ideal customer, your ideal subject, and that will ensure both quality and quantity. The second grouping of metrics is impressions, right? So that often relates to viewability, meaning you could have a lot of followers, but not a lot of impressions. And actually that exact instance is how a lot of marketers figured out that Facebook had changed their algorithm to limit the number of organic business posts that were viewable in the feed as a way of encouraging people to invest in paid ads. And so if you compare those two metrics, you can learn something about what's happening with the platform. The third set is interactions, and that's a good way to measure follower engagement. Something that a lot of marketers don't realize is that engagement, what qualifies as engagement varies dramatically between platforms, just like visits, as we mentioned earlier. So for example, a Facebook view of a video is counted as, in order for a view to count, the video must be watched for about 3 seconds. On other platforms, it's the instant the video plays that counts as a view. So understand what engagement means, what must qualify. And then lastly, clicks. Simply put, it's the relevance of the offering that you're sharing with your audience. Is it something that they're truly interested in engaging with? Do they find it valuable? So that's it for my stuff.
Yeah, thanks, David. So I think that's really great. I mean, I think understanding your audience before the event is so important. Understanding where your attendees are coming from, what their interests are, how they're engaging with social media, really allows you to go into your event with pretty good confidence about how your content at the event, how your sessions, how your exhibitors are going to perform. And then once you get to the event, once you're there, all the planning, the pre-planning is done. Now you're on site. This is where execution becomes very important. But it's also where it becomes very important to never lose sight of collecting that data, because data is going to really drive what's going to happen after the event and what's going to happen at next year's event and the following year event after that. So we're really thinking beyond just this particular event that you're planning for. We're thinking beyond that into the second and third event down the line, right? We want to be able to collect data, throughout the lifetime of a customer's experience with your company and with your company's events. And so, how do we do that on site? There's a lot of ways that data collection has happened in the past with events. I'll go over some of them briefly. You have RFID technology, which was made a big splash a few years ago, but they use these large towers to basically record when somebody walks into a session and then when somebody walks out. And they're a great tool that have been used in various types of events. They tend to be on the expensive side, but also a great tool for collecting data. Then there's also near field communication, which allows you to touch other people's phones, kind of like the iPhone bump. There are scanners and QR codes that allow you to scan people as they walk into sessions. All of those are great technologies, and technologies that have kind of helped set the stage for where the industry is really going now, which is a much more passive data collection at events. And so how does Loop do that? We do it through Bluetooth Low Energy. And we do that through pretty much the same way that Fitbit does for your own personal metrics as you're walking down the street, measuring your heart rate, measuring your steps. We do that for events as it relates to business-to-business exchanges, right? So how somebody interacts with your event space and with your other attendees. So the technology itself is a badge that allows you to exchange contact information with other attendees. It allows you to go into sessions without having to be scanned, and the event organizer then can know exactly who has gone into that session. And it also allows you to collect marketing materials. So say you have an experience at your event that is focused on your company or a particular product your company is promoting at the event, you can actually automate information to be sent to people based on their click of the badge around that particular exhibit. So there's lots of things you can do with this technology. This technology is really a holistic approach to data collection at an event. So it's not just collecting attendees as they go into a session. It's not just an exhibitor tool that can collect information on attendees. It's really saying we want to collect information around our attendees' interests. We want attendees to get information about who they're networking with, and we also want exhibitors to have all that information. So it's really that holistic approach. And what does that allow you to do? So one of the main areas of kind of movement we're seeing in the industry is really identifying influencers, right? So generally speaking, you'll know who your influencers are going into an event. They may be a very big customer of yours that you'll do some customer success video shoots with, but there's always those people that you're not talking to that are influencing your brand with other attendees, right? They're kind of the promoters of your brand, if you will. And so understanding who those people are at your events is becoming very, very important, because you want to reach out to them and make sure that they're getting everything they can from you to continue promoting your brand and your event, and your company, your products to other attendees and other potential customers. So understanding that data. There's a few ways you can collect that data using a badge such as Looped. One is how they're networking with other attendees. So actually seeing the amount of contact exchanges attendees are doing from one attendee to the other. Also understanding how many times they're attending sessions and what sessions they're attending, so you see what they're really interested in content-wise from your event. And then also how they're interacting with your exhibitors. Are they actually out there talking to other exhibitors that are building products on your platform, or that are doing things similar to the space that you're in industry-wise? So collecting all that data and allowing you to use that data to understand who those influencers are, who's most interested in our products, and who's out there promoting it to other attendees. And what you can do with this data is actually score it. So instead of just looking at every attendee and saying, oh, this person went to a session and you know, this person, you know, scanned a badge at a particular exhibitor, really looking at all the data and saying, here are the most likely people to promote our business. Here are the people who just came from a particular piece of content or a particular session or a particular product. Here are the people that came just to get more industry knowledge. Here are the people that came to look for new opportunities at our event. Because as we know, lots of people attend events that are just looking for new opportunities. And so it's really a hands-free system that allows you and your attendees to interact with your space and still collect all that data. And it really becomes that customer relationship management tool at an event. It's like a personalized CRM system at your event, so that you get all that data, and you get all that data in real time. So you can make adjustments to your event, and you can reach out to attendees based on how they're interacting with your event in real time. And then how great would it be to be able to show your attendees that, hey, we're not only collecting data for ourselves about how you're interacting with our event, but we also want to give you the data that you can use so that you can follow up with other attendees from the event more efficiently. And they do that through a contact exchange. And how that works is once you do a contact exchange through the badge, you actually get to see who those people are and their profiles, and then you can take notes about that particular person, what you talked about. So at the end of the event, you'll have a very good snapshot of everyone that you talked to. You'll also know the location and the time of when you talk to that person. So when you follow up, you have a frame of reference of how you should follow up with them after the event. And it gives you just a really great way to manage all of that data. So no longer are you having to collect business cards and write notes on them and stash them away in your purse or in your briefcase and then bring them back out and try to remember what they are. This gives you a system to efficiently follow up based on when and where you met someone and kind of what your interests were at the event. So what does this all facilitate, right? So in the past, there's been some missing parts of event. We've never known how well our events do marketing-wise. We've never been able to measure that, right? Business cards, you can't measure how many times somebody has actually handed out a business card at an event. That's something we can measure now through the Looped badge. You can actually know if this happy hour that you've set up has actually been effective at networking, or if you did some sort of, industry session where you had people at a round table and discussing topics in your industry, you'll be able to measure how well that went based on the data that we're collecting. So it really makes you much more effective in your networking. It allows your attendees to get more growth potential because they're never losing data from the event, and they're never having to collect a lot of marketing material paper-wise that they have to then file away and never look at again. This gives them the opportunity to have all this data throughout the year so they can use it to follow up. It obviously creates more business opportunities because you're never losing any data about what people are interested in. And then you can associate that person to a particular marketing campaign that also might lead to a particular presentation, and it might lead to a closed deal. That's how we associate the event to the revenue. And then once you're able to do that, you're able to see what is the value of this event. We just created not, a million new leads. We just created, 150 or 500 really good prospects that are looking to buy products or services within the next 6 months, right? That is powerful information to collect at an event. And so then once you come back from your event, how do you score your event? Is it just random based on the amount of attendees that showed up your event? Is it based on the amount of sessions you had? So we like to think of this as, we think you should create a scorecard on how well your event did data-wise, so that you can measure it year after year and see how much better you're doing with your event. So things like client meetings, how many were set up at the executive level and a product level? What was the goal and what actually happened at the event? What was the attendance like at sessions? For each session, what was the goal? What was the actual attendance? How well did people interact with surveys? How many times did people promote the event through social media, through Twitter and Facebook and other forms of social media? Were you able to get a net promoter score from the event? Networking. How well did your networking sessions do? Budget-wise, how under budget or above budget were you on this event? And how do you measure that up year after year? And where are those areas that you can save money this year because you've collected data on whether people have actually attended a food and beverage session? And then opportunities. What were those opportunities? Not only was it the amount of lead captures, but how many qualified leads do you have based on the data that you have? How many qualified visits did you have to your product booth or to your general session or to your breakout sessions that resulted in qualified leads? And then how do you associate those leads to actual revenue downline? So downstream, how many times did somebody who was interested in a particular session or product actually purchase that product 2, 3, 4 months from that event? And then how do you use that information to make sure they're getting everything they need so they can purchase that product? This is a really important way to score your event so that you can show your executives, here's how well we did and here's where we need to improve. So some of the really great benefits from using technology like this, so you can be much more targeted, is an increase in survey responses. Surveys are very difficult for people to fill out, oftentimes because they don't really think they were at a session for long enough to take a survey, or they just feel like it's not something that they really care to fill out. So some of the things that we're working on is actually doing a 1 through 5 star before somebody can get back into the mobile app, kind of like Uber, is rating a session based on their attendance of being there for 30 minutes and really showing an increase in survey responses. You get much better data from your attendees about whether they liked content or not only based on their attendance, but also from the survey. And then being able to use all that data and create reports for your account executives, create reports for your business development representatives so that they can follow up accordingly, right? Your account executives are going to have the information on if somebody was an influencer at your event and they know exactly that they're interested in a product or service, they can reach directly out to them around that data. And then your BDRs can use the data around, how many people attended the general session and, how do we follow up with them so we make sure we know exactly what they got out of this event. All of that information can be created by this data. So lastly, we want to go beyond the Net Promoter Score, right? So the Net Promoter Score is a great way to say who is going to promote our product or our event to other customers and potential customers down the line? It's a very, very simple question by just saying, how would you recommend this product or service, this event, to other people, right? And so that's a great score to measure your event or measure your customers' interest in your products and services that you are showcasing at your event. But we think you can go beyond that by saying, we know that people were interested in these sessions, in this content. We know that people interacted with these exhibitors and these salespeople. We know that there were a few attendees that did more networking and talked to more customers and engaged with more sessions and exhibitors, that we can already tell that this person is an influencer. This is a promoter, right? And then you can actually look and compare the data from your survey of your Net Promoter Score to the actual data at your event. So you just have much more clarity on who is the most effective attendee at your event, who's taking advantage of everything that you have created for your attendees at the event. And then using that information to reach out to them so they're getting everything they need from your company to continue promoting your products and services, or continue to engage with your company if they are potentially going to buy a product or buy a service from your company. So really associating, here's what our event does, and here's all the sessions and content and exhibitors that we've created for these attendees, and then associating that to bottom line revenue, influencers, promoters, understanding all that data so that you never lose opportunities and you make the opportunities higher quality, higher value, and much more effective for your organization and much more value for your executive team to understand that, hey, we spend a lot of money on these events, but we see that we're getting tremendous value, not only from our attendees, but from everyone who took part in the event. And that's really kind of the new strategy, the new direction that we're seeing event organizers focus on, moving from execution to strategy, using the data they're collecting before the event, the data they're collecting during the event, and then using that data to say, here's how much revenue we're driving from that event. So with that, we would love to take questions from anybody in the audience. If you have any questions, please type them in, and we will try our best to answer them as they come in.
Hey, Joe, I see a question that I think might be interesting for both of us to take a crack at. So basically, how would you suggest creating event goals supported by data?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I think event goals are important, right? Everybody should have event goals based on, what they want to accomplish from the event. And so using that data is relevant because you want to know, if your goal is we want to create or we want to, reach, 80% of our attendees are, going to sessions, or 70% of our attendees are interacting with our exhibitors and sponsors, or 60% of our attendees are actually networking with one another. So using those goals and then looking at the data and say, how well did these goals measure up to our actual data from the event? That's how one way we would do it. I'm curious to see how you guys would do it before the event as well.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the event scorecard that you walked everyone through, I think, is a good framework, especially if you just approach it and think, okay, the minimum for success here would be an A based on these data points. Another framework that we work with, our customer success team works with our customers to set goals before they start using our platform, so that there's a real vision of where people, want to go, and then we can service them better. And so we use the framework. It's called a SMART, which is an acronym. Basically stands for specific, measurable, assignable, realistic, and time related. So thinking about event goals, that are data-driven that you can actually quantify. That means they're specific, and it also means they're measurable, and assignable. So you have probably different event goals, whether it's related to registration rates, attendee engagement and satisfaction, also the sponsor and key stakeholder satisfaction. Those can all be assigned to different team members if your teams are large enough. And then realistic, of course. So I mentioned the minimum acceptable level of success. So that's something we think about a lot. So we kind of think about goals as small, medium, and large. So that kind of helps to have everyone understand the scale that you're talking about of possible success. And then, of course, time-related. Well, event planners are planning events that are time-related, and that's just inherent in what they do. So yeah, that's how we think about that.
Great. So here's another question. How do you associate registration information to badges at the event so you can collect the data? Great question. So basically, it would be a simple API from, say, Bizzabo to Looped. So Bizzabo would basically be able to, have that information, and then we would have an API set up where we would be able to associate a badge to each registrant's information. And then I think that the other part of that really is the data that Bizzabo is collecting before the event, being able to see that data and understand that data for each attendee at the event, so that you have a baseline amount of knowledge of what that attendee is interested in. Dave, I don't know if you have anything else on that.
Yeah, I think that's the importance of integration, really. I mean, I think you covered it well. Just the tools talk to one another through even very painless import-export. It's not an open API. And then the organizer has visibility throughout the whole life cycle of the event, which is exactly what this webinar is about, associating data with the attendee's journey and then using that to measure success.
Fantastic. I don't see any other questions, but what I'd like to do real quickly is just kind of finish up and say thank you to everybody who participated. I think that this is a really important strategic shift in mindset for events and organizers as we move forward. And if anybody's interested in getting more information about Looped or Bizzabo, they can reach out to both David and I through email, through LinkedIn. Definitely follow us on Twitter, and let's talk about how you can increase your revenue through the events for your whole company. Now, Dave, do you have any last words?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, everyone, for attending. You can email me at david@bizzabo.com. Happy to answer any questions you might have, and hope it was helpful.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining.